What's your view of what causes climate change?
I don't think it's so important to tell the truth. I think more important it's a fact. The temperature of the surface of the planet changing. That's true. That's a matter of fact. It's also true and very possible that number of the dangerous anomalies, nature anomalies will increase. Like consequence of the warming of the surface of the planet.
Yes.
But I think what's wrong if from these facts we are jumping to the question and starting to discuss who is guilty.
Who's guilty?
That is what is, I think, very wrong. Because, of course, it's more natural way to start discussion from this. Because we're all following certain type of the thinking, which is, maybe it's coming from really, how you said before, from a religious perspective or whatever. Because it's always the same circle. Firstly, exists a sin. Somebody done something bad. Then exists punishment. Something bad happened because somebody done sin. Let's start to address the problem instead of the looking for person who did it. By the way, the same pattern goes about everything. Maybe in some conflicts, instead of the looking who caused it,
hold on,
it's better to think.
But you also can't solve a problem if you don't know its source. If you don't know why it's happening, how can you fix it?
So I think in this type of the question, we need to concentrate more on learning, on understanding, rather than on beliefs. So coming back to the learning. So surface of our planet receive radiation from the sun approximately, 340 megawatts per square meter. That is heating the source of our planet. But part of this heat, it's reflected. It's going back to the space. In case if we don't have atmosphere, what happens? So temperature of our planet will be perhaps 35 degrees lower than it is now. So why it's not lower? Because we have atmosphere. What is atmosphere? Inside of our atmosphere, there are certain gases which we call greenhouse gases.
Yes.
Major of them, it's water vapor. Second, it's CO2, then methane, then others. So what these gases do, they reflect heat back to the surface. About three quarter of the heat, it's reflected, it's going back to the surface. So we experience kind of infrared sauna effect. Firstly, direct sun exposure, and after that, reflected heat waves coming. So that's how it works. So why I'm explaining of this? Okay, so let's imagine we are not looking whom to blame for the problem, but in reality, we are just trying to put temperature a little bit down. Let's say a degree or two down. We are trying to find these knobs, how you call it, on the thermostat, so to turn them down and make temperature a little bit lower. So question number one, you want to increase reflection of the heat from the surface of the planet. So that will be first question. That's what in science they call albedo. So it's a ability of the surface to reflect waves coming on the surface.
Yes.
Albedo. So white color, basically, if you have a mirror, your albedo is 1. If you have a completely dark something, your albedo is 0. Everything else goes in the middle. So if you want that surface heated less, you increase albedo. Step number 1. Step number 2. What you want to do? You want to decrease reflection in the atmosphere, which is going back to the surface. In other words, you want to decrease a concentration of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
So the heat can escape.
So that's actually 2 actions which you wanted to take. Are there any difference? No, because it doesn't matter. Either you basically send more out of the surface, or you allow less to come back to the surface. So when we're talking about greenhouse gases, so another just numbers. So our planet emits about 820 gigatons of equivalent of CO2 per year. Humans emit about 54 gigatons out of this 820. So it's about 6%. So that is input of the human greenhouse gases emission.
Is 6% of the total.
6% of the total. Yeah. That's why, if you look on all of it combined, it's really unexplainable. No, I mean, from the logical perspective, why all attention given not to the changing of the albedo of the world, of the surface of our planet, and or not to the addressing other 94% of the emission, which is coming from the nature, but why all attention concentrated on this 6% of total. That's very difficult to explain from the logical perspective. So that's what beginning. Question number 2 can be asked. Is it possible to address either remaining 94% of greenhouse gases, or what does it really mean to change albedo? of the surface. Is it feasible? Of course it's feasible. So what means to change natural emission, this 94%? Plant forest, that's about it. So meadows, it's about this. Deal with the permafrost, which is covering big storages of the carbon in the underneath. It's also to deal with the CO2, so which is trapped there. So there are different ways to affect natural coast emissions. That calls natural-based solutions. Exist estimations and numbers which show the potential of it. It's about 18 gigatons, 20 gigatons, so numbers like this. So it's more or less about half of the anthropogenic emissions can be much more cheaply mitigated by natural-based solution. So that's story number one. Story number two about albedo. What does it mean? For example, to paint roof white, that means change albedo. It was black, become white. So, or to change color of the roads. Or, for example, to plant certain types of the grass, of meadows, or something like this. I give you numbers. So, typical, let's say, gas power plant in Texas will produce maybe 2.5 million tons of CO2 per year. So, in order to absorb it by albedo, it will need to be, I would say, 15,000 hectares. You need to change albedo for 0.04. I'm sorry for technical details. It's not very much. So, for example, when you plant in the black soil cotton, it increases albedo about 5 times bigger. So that's how you can compensate one by another. Amazing thing is that it's very simple, very cheap, and basically numbers which can be achieved by this are comparable to what we are doing now with anthropogenic emission.